Hi, I'm Katie Sky, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to the island of Scuttle. This is my jungle pirate core island. Today we will be working on this area, and we will be working on one of the builds that I've been the most excited for on this island, and it is a ship build. And in typical fashion, this build ended up being so much bigger than I initially thought it was going to be. It is massive, but I am so happy with how it came out. So I just started off with doing some, I was going to say simple terraforming, but it really was not simple. Uh, I, I had to be very specific in what I was doing to make it look like it's a ship, like ship shape. That was funny. I am so sorry that I just laughed at my own joke and it wasn't even a good joke, like whatsoever. I apologize for that. As I was saying, I needed to make the terraforming look like a ship on the map, and so it needed the general shape of a ship, and it took me a couple tries to figure it out, but I eventually did get there. And I do have to say that there are not a lot of reference pictures out there for pirate builds like this, of specifically like pirate ships. And I didn't realize this, but apparently pirate core is one of the harder themes to do. I didn't realize that until, not until I really started looking for like inspo pictures for builds on this island did I realize there are really not that many. And that makes it a little bit harder for me sometimes to figure out how to go about doing a specific build I have an idea for. So the way that my process kind of works is I come up with an idea for a build, in this case a pirate ship build, and then I go to like Google or Pinterest, wherever I end up being, sometimes Instagram, and I look for ideas for that type of build. And then once I've seen how other people kind of do it, I can figure out what I think is going to be the best way for me to go about doing it. And for this island, besides like the entrance, which I took a lot of inspiration from one particular creator, I haven't been able to do something like I would normally do just because there's so few builds that fit within my theme. All of that to say, this build got really big really fast, and it ended up being quite large. And I'm sure exactly no one is surprised that that happened to me, because that's pretty much my MO whenever I build anything. It always ends up so much bigger than I first anticipated. And we are now working on one of the areas that really made this a lot bigger than I first thought, because I decided after I got the general shape of the ship that I wanted to surround it in water. And you might be wondering, Katie, why does adding water make it so much bigger? Well, let me tell you, because this build was already going to have 2 villager houses in it, and then I decided to go and add a bunch of water and make it so overly complicated when I did not need to do that. And this build, I'm not even exaggerating, took me 3.5 days. And the villagers that are going to be living over here with the ship are Sandy and Rod. I, of course, had to have my little pirate mouse over here. There's no place he could go other than with the ship. And I'm gonna be so real with you, I did not like Rod when I first had him on this island, just because I don't really like the mice, but he has grown on me so much, and I think he's actually so adorable now. So of course he had to get a really cute area, and this ship needed to be in tip-top shape. Well, as tip-top of shape as a maroon ship could be. And when I was deciding on who the other villager was going to be in this area with him, I really wasn't sure. But then I decided that Sandy would be the best fit, honestly, because she's wearing a tank top that looks very similar to what Rod is wearing. I'm gonna be so real, that's the main reason. So we have our two little pirate villagers that are going to guard the marooned ship to make sure nothing nefarious happens. And I decided that their houses really were going to be like almost a part of the ship. So they also needed to be surrounded in water, which was kind of tricky because I didn't have that much space to work with. And I knew I wanted to do bridges to get to their houses. And then I was trying to figure out how I would make sure that you could get from their houses onto the ship. And first I was going to do like each house would have 2 bridges, and then I was like, no, that's way too much in such a small space. And I went back and forth, and I eventually found a way that worked, but it took like 2 hours, I'm not going to lie, for me to figure that out. There was a lot of trial and error where I was trying something, didn't like it, so I had to, put the land back basically on the waterscaping, and then it was just like back and forth, back and forth. Like, as you can see, I started this when it was daylight out, and now the sun is setting. I did take a slight break on this though to try and figure out and brain through like the best way to do this entire build with all of the water around the ship, and then also still being able to access the ship in a really intentional way. And of course, when I came back, every single villager wanted to just hang out in this area and totally get into my way. But I mean, are you even building an Animal Crossing if your villagers are not fully in your way the entire time? I think not. Another thing I'll say is that working next to the plaza is so irritating because you can't get anything super close to it. You can put a tree next to the plaza, but you can't put a bridge next to it. It's so frustrating. So I kept having to like move it over and trying to make sure there was enough room on either side. Eventually we got there, but it was kind of frustrating in the process of it. And now that we have our 2 bridges, we're just really gonna throw a bunch of water down. Like a bunch of it. And I did cut a lot of it out because I was tired of doing it. I was sure you would be tired of seeing it after like 3 days of me just terraforming and waterscaping for this build. And I wish I could say that the next build that I do on this island is going to be less intense, but I would be lying. So I hope y'all are ready for some intense waterscaping, terraforming type videos because, well, you don't have a choice. Like, that's what's happening, unfortunately. But this is a jungle, tropical-ish island, so it was bound to happen. It needs waterscaping. It needs lots of water for it to classify as tropical or jungle in my brain. And now I'm just moving on to this weird land that I somehow left. I don't know why it's that shape, but I did have to get rid of that and do a couple of little outcroppings just so it wasn't a straight line. And then I was just getting the general shape of the outline of water that's going to be around it. And then I got tired, and now it's the next day. I told you it took me a long time to do this, but now we're finally starting on the actual ship decorating, which is super fun, and it includes laying a lot of custom coats. So the first area I tackled was this like below deck area where maybe they keep their like rum, their gunpowder, their treasures. that's kind of the idea that I had with this. So it's just like honestly a hole in the ship. But it was a lot of fun to decorate. Okay, so I mostly just did barrels, but I like the barrels. They're fun. And then I did use these gold bars because they're pirates. Obviously, they were looking for treasure and they were going to store it down below, protected. Maybe there's an armed guard with a sword. I don't know. Until they could get back to wherever they store their goods. And now we're moving on to the rest of the ship, which we have to put all of the wood planking down on every part of this ship, pretty much. And I did do this in two different directions. So one is kind of like the path that you would take around, and then the other one is just like the regular wood. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. And now that all of the pathing for the ship is done, we can move on to the decorating, which I'm using this spiky fence, which I've been obsessed with on this island. I'm pretty sure this is like the only island I can ever make those work at. But we're just going to do that on both sides before we move on to the next bit. You will definitely be seeing this all over the place for this island. Like, I'm just having too much fun with this fence. And I did try to keep both sides kind of even, but like one off of each other. I don't know why I decided to do that, but that is in fact what I did. And I did indeed keep forgetting what the pattern was, which is why you see me running back and forth. And now we're moving on to what I'm most excited for, and that's the cannon. I was so excited to be able to put all of these cute little cannons up, you know, because you got to protect your ship, you got to protect your treasures. And what better way to do that than with some cannons? So I'm literally putting so many cannons in right here. I do eventually tone it back just a little bit because I thought it, even for me, it was a little bit excessive. But just know I wanted to put cannons in every space I could on this ship. But I did come to my senses to a degree. If you can hear my dog snoring, I am so sorry. She is just like passed out next to me. It's like 9 o'clock at night as I'm recording this voiceover, but yeah, she's snoring. And I'm not gonna wake her up. Sorry. She's too cute for it. She needs her beauty sleep, okay? As you watch me place even more cannons down, let's talk about a little bit of the lore of this island. I think that there was a mutiny and somebody scuttled the ship that we're on right now into this deserted island for whatever reason. We don't know why they did that. But that is where I got the idea for the name. The name of the island, if you forgot, is Scuttle. And I don't know if you know this, but scuttling a ship means basically it's deliberately sunk, or you crash into something to flood water into some part of it. I don't know. I'm not a ship person. But basically, you do something that sinks the ship and you did it on purpose. That's scuttling. And so this island is Scuttle because I believe they ended up on this island because somebody did something that they were not supposed to do. And now their ship is unusable and stuck in the actual land of this island. And so they had to learn to survive on this very jungly, waterlogged island, and after many, many years, they kind of made it their own and eventually found a way off of the island, but they all loved this island so much that they stayed here. And in my limited research of ships, pirate ships, I found that they all have the like steering in the back. So that's why I put the helm where I did. Um, because to me, the ship is going kind of like into the island out from the seas, so it's sticking headfirst into the island basically. So the captain or whoever was driving, navigating the ship was in the back of the ship, up on their little pedestal thing. And I did forget to put stuff on top of those barrels, and I finally noticed, and I went back and I put stuff down there. This is also where I decided maybe 6 cannons on one side is too many. So I did take a couple of them out, and right now they just have tiki torches. I do think one of them gets replaced because I thought it looked kind of weird having two next to each other like that. And then there is the one space on this side I'm working on now that will stay empty because that is how you get up onto the ship. And I really wanted this ship to be accessible. I didn't want it to just be something that you could only look at. I wanted it to be interactive in a way. Basically, I want you to be able to come up here and run around and take pictures like you're a pirate. And I did play around with the idea of having actual like inclines up here to get to the different levels, but I decided that was way too many inclines in a small space and that we would just do some of the ladder kits. So that's what I did. And now we're putting in some of the siding with the simple panels. And on some of this siding, you can see that there are holes in the side of the ship. And that's because it is marooned here, like I said in my little story. Listen guys, I'm an author, I don't know what you expect of me. How am I gonna do a build like this and not create an elaborate backstory? Like, I don't know what you expect. And I did want to try to cover as much of the cliff as possible, just so that it doesn't ruin the illusion. So I did have to mess with the terraforming a little bit to be able to get it up here and sit flat. But we did it. And now we're just moving on to the lower section to cover that cliff, just so that everything looks like a ship. And before I fixed this terraforming, I wanted to add the little, I don't know what it's called, like the little decorative piece that you see on like ships, like mermaids and whatnot. I did that, but with one of our statues that you can get. And I thought that it came out pretty cute. Do I wish it was a little bit smaller? Because it's half the size of the ship? Sure do, but we're working with what we're working with. But I think it was really cute. Kind of gives the same vibe from what I remember I've seen on ships before and in like old pictures of like ancient, not ancient, of like old timey ships, and you know, like Pirates of the Caribbean. And now that we've fixed all of that terraforming and waterscaping back up, we can move on to getting these simple panels laid out because it's gonna take a lot of them. And I really just alternated which panels or which designed panels I used. I did it completely randomly, but I wanted to make sure that there were several pieces that were like showed like the ship was damaged. And then I did want the ladder to be kind of hidden, and so I did this one kind of further in front just so you couldn't see it, but you could still get to it. So you know it's there, I know it's there, but not everybody does. So you'll only find out if you are adventurous and jump across to get to looking at the ship. Then you will find the ladder. And I have used this type of trick before on an island. I do like to use it when you want to hide something but still have it accessible. And now we're just moving on to make a little hop spot so that you can actually get to the ladder. So, and then I decided the back of the ship here needed some little lights so that other ships knew that it was there. I think that's the point of lights on ships, so you don't crash into each other. And then adding in another anchor and then just some wheat field to kind of show, that it's overgrown because it's been marooned. Maybe the island is starting to take it back, not take it back, but like incorporate it into its islandness. I don't know what I'm saying. And there are just a couple of little tiles to decorate in front of the ship here. And so I'm just throwing in some natural stuff again to add more to the like island is taking it back. But I wasn't doing anything too much. And now we can finally move on to the area in front of the ships where the houses are. So we are going to start with my boy Rod's house, and it's honestly just a lot of filler decoration, like nothing like too specific, just vaguely piratey. And because I didn't want the houses to be too wild, and that takes away from the ship, because I want you to look at the ship because I spent 3.5 days making the ship. And as much as I love Rod, his house is not the vibe. So now I'm starting to think that I might have to do HHP, which I didn't want to do on this island. I tried to avoid doing it as much as humanly possible, but I never seem to be able to. But I might have to speed run that just so that I can at least change the exteriors, because these houses are not cute on the outside, in my opinion. If you like his house, that's fine. We're allowed to have different opinions. And now it's another day. If you were curious about the change in lighting, it's because it was yet another new day that I decided to decorate on. I told you it took me a long time to do this build. I was not exaggerating. I can be a dramatic person sometimes. I mean, I am an author. I do have like different worlds living in my head most of the time, but I wasn't being dramatic about this. But we're just putting some flowers and tiki torches, bushes down for Rod's house. And then I did want to try to get a little stool in there because I do like giving them somewhere to sit around their houses. Normally I do it more next to their house, but this time I did it kind of in front of his house and I thought it was kind of cute. Like, it's a vibe. And then I also wanted to put something in this little spot in front of the window. And so I did this little bamboo basket thingy. And then I did a wheat field, but then I wanted to kind of flip the orientation with those. So I slightly shifted each of them over. And I love my wheat field, so we had to add some of that in before we move on to the next and do the decorations for Sandy's house. And this one I used some of the bamboo partition, and I put a tree here and the partition mostly to kind of block the cliff, like the bare cliff, from the view when you're looking at the ship. And of course I couldn't place an item here, so I had to pick up the tree to place the item, then I had to put the tree back, and then it's a whole ordeal, and it's so overly dramatic that we have to do that sometimes. And I wanted to add this candlestick in, and I did it on top of the bamboo stool just to give it some height. I thought it was kind of cute. And then we're doing some more tiki torches. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm obsessed with putting them literally everywhere. They just work so well for this island that I want to use them everywhere, like with the spiky fence, and so I'm going to. And I did want to put another tree in here, mostly because it would fit. And I did a small one because he's cute. And we're just gonna put the last couple of items down and bushes before immediately changing my mind and wanting to redo how I had just done something, which is very typical me as well. I wanted to switch out the bush with a tiki torch just because I thought that the tiki torch would work really well in that spot, so I just had to move the bush down one. And then we are moving on to the area between the two houses and adding in a bunch of tiki torches. How many times do you think I've said the word tiki torch in this video? I would venture to say it's more than 10, maybe even more than 20. Actually, you know what? I don't want to know how many times I've said it because it would probably make me cringe a little bit. And because I know there's going to be a very large area of pathing in this area, I did put a little sugarcane plant down so that I can put the path around that just so that it breaks it up a little bit more. And now we're just laying a lot of path. It's just gonna lead from Rod's house to Sandy's house, and then I guess to the plaza as well, since the plaza is like right there. Again, I'm not gonna make you sit through all of the pathing because there was a lot in this video, and honestly, this video is already pretty long as is, so I didn't want to make it like obnoxiously long. So I did cut little bits out. Now, this looks like the finished build, right? There couldn't be more. You would, in fact, be wrong. I apparently cannot help myself. So there's this area below the pathing, kind of behind and next to Cat's Tavern, that was empty, and I wanted to have like a little viewing area for the ship, and so I decided to build that cliff out a little bit, add a little incline as you're seeing, and then make it a little viewpoint, like I said, so that you can maybe take like a cute picture with the ship. I don't know. And I don't know what happened to the footage of me doing the barrels behind me right now, but I mean, you've seen me put a bunch of barrels down, so sorry, don't know what happened there. And then we are going to add in a little bamboo, what is it called? Bamboo bench, so that the villagers can sit down as they do. And now we're going to move on to this upper area. I'm still undecided if I need to get rid of that bamboo tree. I don't know if it blocks the view too much or not. I don't know. I'm still deciding. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I need to remove this bamboo tree so that it doesn't block the picture moment as much? I don't know. But I am just throwing a few small items, another bamboo bench, tiki torches, and then mostly natural items. And I wasn't initially going to put any pathing up here. I was just gonna have basically the items be the path. But I did decide after I finished this build, so you won't get to see it, sorry, that I wanted to make some small plank codes and use those as the path, just like a small little path. But yeah, like I said, you don't get to see that in this video because at this time I had not made them yet. I don't know why I hadn't made them because I use those types of codes on literally every island, but I didn't for whatever reason. I will try to show you the little plank codes at some point so that you can see what this area ended up looking like. And I do give you permission to yell at me in the comments if I don't do that in the next couple of videos. And we are done. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please comment, like, and subscribe. let me know what your favorite part of this build is and what you think I should do next. And I am going to give you a little walkthrough of our little ship build. So you got to use the little hop spots and then go up the little ladder. And then you're in the ship. You can fire the cannons. You can do whatever you want to do. I really hope you enjoyed this build. I most certainly did. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!